President Trump tweets an idea about health care, and critics are now saying it's even worse than the Republican health care plans we will dissect and debate. Then Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski respond to President Trump's tweet personally attacking them, and the story gets even more involved and even more bizarre. And later, the controversial new ad from the National Rifle Association that some are calling a call to violence, even though the ad isn't about guns. Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman, in tonight for Richard French. Instead of a vote on health care or a revised bill, Senate Republicans are regrouping and now trying to figure out what to do next.
The White House still hopeful the Senate will get something done soon on health care.
We're still fully committed to pushing through with the Senate, but we're looking at every possible option of repealing and replacing Obamacare.
But after a week of closed-door negotiations, no revised bill for senators to consider as they head home. But a few new proposals are appealing to some GOP health care holdouts. Now on the table for moderates, a possible sweetener of up to $45 billion to fight the opioid epidemic and an option to keep an Obamacare tax on wealthy investors. On the other end of the spectrum, some conservatives are pushing a proposal to allow insurance companies to offer cheaper plans that do not cover essential health benefits.
It's a big, complicated subject. We've got a lot of discussions going on, and we're still optimistic we're going to get there.
The president also tweeting another idea Friday morning, suggesting senators immediately repeal Obamacare, then come up with a replacement at a later date. Senators Rand Paul and Ben Sasse tweeting back their support of that idea. But Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, appearing on CNN, said that's not the way to go.
No, I think it's repeal and replace. I think we have to have a good system for the American people to come in.
All right, you've heard from the lawmakers. Now let's hear from our panel. We're joined tonight by Jerica Richardson. She is a former spokesperson for Mayor Bill de Blasio and also former U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara. To her left, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. On the other side of the table, Richard St. Paul, Republican strategist and former vice chair for the National Black Republican Association. And to his right, Scott Vanderhoff, former five-term Republican Rockland County executive and co-chairman of the Palisades Institute of Dominican College. Welcome to you all. Let's start with the idea that President Trump tweeted out this morning, the idea of a straight repeal. This is something that would be somewhat consistent from what we've heard from a lot of conservatives over the last 7 years. Is it remotely feasible? Richard, I'll start with you.
At this point in time, no, it wouldn't be remotely feasible. As you just saw, that the Senate is still working on the replace and repeal. The House passed a replace and repeal, so certainly it's not feasible at this moment.
Let's say the Senate can't get enough votes to get replace and repeal passed, which they haven't been able to up to now. Is that something that they could even get 50 votes on for just a straight repeal?
Again, it has to go through the House again, and I don't think it's something that anybody thought about. It's always been replace and repeal. So I think the president was just putting out a little bait out there. I don't know what he was thinking, but he's just kind of putting something out there, but I certainly don't think Congress is going to follow that lead.
Well then, Scott, let me hit you with the most difficult question. What was the president thinking? Like, what's behind that idea?
He wants a victory. He does not know how to get it. It is a complicated subject. If he could just repeal it, he'd say, I've repealed it. But there's no chance. The only group that will go with a repeal idea are the staunch conservatives, not the middle-of-the-road guys, not anybody else, as Richard points out. So I think he's looking for any way out. He wants a success, and he's throwing things up kind of in the air.
Jerica, is there any way to get a sense of what a straight repeal, what the impact would be? I mean, I guess it would just take us back to where we were in 2009 before the Affordable Care Act came in.
You know, I'm not quite sure where it would take us, but I can tell you that it's just a non-starter. It just doesn't make sense at all. This is the same president that characterized the very bill he was trying to push through the House as a mean bill. And so I think just repealing on its own, I mean, those are mean actions. You're completely leaving the American people out in the cold without an alternative.
And Dominic, Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska is one of the guys who supports the idea of a straight repeal, as he tweeted out this morning. I think it was on Fox News this morning, and about 20 minutes later, the president tweeted out this tweet. Is this just the last person to get into the president's ear gets his attention?
Perhaps. I felt that you asked the county executive the most difficult question of the year.
Yo, sure.
When you asked him to explain what was the president
I'm
thinking.
going to ask that every segment of the show.
No one at this table or any other television show can tell you what this president is thinking. I want to flip this on you. I know you're asking the questions tonight, but let's go back before Obamacare.
Yeah.
Wasn't there an outrage, national outrage for a change in health care? You had people all across the country literally dying, people with cancer, and they had no means for health care? Was that the case?
Absolutely. And premiums would spike
and so the solution is to go back to that and declare that as a victory. So he had the county exec had the impossible question, but he's right in terms of the answer. The president, I don't think he's looking at what's best for Americans, as hard as that may be to say. I think he's looking at, I need a win at any cost, and I want to win. It is ridiculous. And if you're a Republican, how are you supposed to run on, right around the corner, oh, we got rid of Obamacare. Well, I don't have any more insurance, but we got rid of Obamacare, and you're supposed to run on that as a platform?
I mean, if I was Mitch McConnell, I'd say we need to repeal and replace this president because he's undermining his own party.
Well, just pure mechanics. You can't repeal it. You can't just go back. I mean, something needs to be done about catastrophic illness and other things. So it cannot be done. I mean, without the entire system being undercut. So, I mean, from a real practical, mechanical point of view, it is impossible.
And what about the kids, the college-age kids? One of the greatest benefits of Obamacare, the college-age kids, that were reaching the age of aging out, and they pushed it up to 25, 26, whatever the age may have been. Right. What happens to them if we go back?
Well, you have pre-existing conditions. You have
what happens with all of that? Do we just go poof?
The expansion of Medicaid, which put millions of tens of more than 2 million people on
how is that a
health
victory?
insurance.
I'm putting you guys here.
It's not.
Well,
it
is compared to the numbers that we're looking at here, only just because it doesn't look like the Senate bill has got enough popular support. We know it doesn't have enough support in the Senate. The other strategy that we heard about in that piece was essentially buying votes. Mitch McConnell has about $200 billion in Medicaid savings in his plan so far that he can then, compared to what they save in the House, that he can then give out to things like additional focus on opioid abuse or rural health care to try to appease specific senators from specific states. Richard, that's an effective way of getting legislation passed, but it also comes with a bit of a stigma, if you recall, from when the Affordable Care Act was passed.
Well, look, I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of horse trade that takes place. This is how deals get cut and legislation gets pushed through Congress. So it's no surprise if the Senate Majority Leader has a couple of trinkets that he can pull people on the side. There's no surprise
when this happened with the Affordable Care Act, I think there was a deal involving Nebraska, and there was, would it be the Cornhusker kickback that we've been hearing about for all those years? I mean, Republicans were apoplectic when that process went through in the ACA. Now they're engaging in the same process right now.
But it's how things get done in Washington. And I think, look, it's like watching sausage being made. Nobody wants to watch it get made, but you want to see the end result. So if it's necessary to get things done, it happens all the time.
So you're prepared to take back your criticism of the Cornhusker the Cornhusker kickback?
I didn't say it, but it certainly is something.
Can we find that tape of Richard? No, we don't have the tape handy, but I'm sure that
you sound like the president now with Comey, huh? Yeah, but I hope I don't have a tape on that. No.
Jerica, there's also been some talk about perhaps we can do this in a bipartisan fashion. You've seen some of the more moderate Republicans say they'd like to do that. Democrats are saying that's not even on the table until this Senate bill is dead. Do you think there's a chance for that? And would Democrats be harming their own electoral chances back home by working with Republicans if it came to that?
I don't think there's a chance for it right now. I think you have to reset the table. The fact that there weren't Democrats at part of this conversation for a long time. You can't all of a sudden in the fifth hour try to bring everyone to the table and say, let's work something out. I think we need to go back to the drawing board, and we should just table all of this for now, and we should definitely stop talking about repeal until everyone actually has the opportunity to weigh in and come up with a plan. I think we need to put it on pause.
So you're saying keep the Affordable Care Act, tweak it to try to improve it,
yes,
and just go with that?
Yes, because everything that's been proposed right now is just more, it's worse.
Scott, how does that play for Republican senators and members of Congress facing re-election in 2018 if the Affordable Care Act is still on the books?
Look, let's talk Machiavellian, okay?
Sure.
I don't think any of these guys thinks they can repeal it. I don't think the Senate does. I think they want to say they tried. So going back to the issue, they've got to come. Schumer, I don't know if he's sincere or not, but he says, look, but we'll talk with you. We know that Obamacare needs tweaking. We understand that. My guess is, in the final days, of the final analysis of all this will not pass. If it happens to get through by a slim majority, the House is not going to approve it. You've got too many different, and you'll ultimately end up coming back with a combination, a bipartisan look at Obamacare. And you know why? Because in 2018, every Republican wants to say, I was part of that to tweak and change Obamacare just like I promised.
But you think we tried to repeal it, even though we couldn't, is enough protection for them?
Yep.
Because Dominic, I think back to the last 6 years of the Obama administration when Republicans had at least one half of Congress, and the fate of both the president and the Democrats in Congress was, well, we tried, we were obstructed, and they were sort of penalized by voters.
Well, I agree with the assessment that was just laid out by the county exec. There are some, and we've been saying this for the last couple of days, that believe Mitch McConnell, being a great counter of votes that he is, or whipping of votes, believe that this was never going to pass to begin with. There are some that believe that he knew that it was set up for failure from day one. To save my life, what I don't understand is who is advising the president. I don't care what you say about savings for tax. He was on a roll with Gorsuch in terms of the Supreme Court. Why not deal with something else? This issue is the third rail of American political politics.
Don't you need more than one victory to be on a roll?
Right, but do something else. Anything else but this.
The president did say that he would move on to tax reform if this doesn't pass, and I agree. I think that the Republicans can win, and the reason why, despite not passing or repealing Obamacare, is because you look at the numbers, the popularity of the House bill and the Senate bill. Americans are very scared. So if we move past that without passing those, I think they're happy.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's a segment that maybe needs a parental warning to go with it. It's President Trump and his tweets, the president not backing down, Joe and Mika fighting back. We'll look at the he said, she said between the president and the hosts of Morning Joe this morning, and the story gets even stranger on day 2.